Picture this. It's 2016, a crisp fall day in October, and something hits the screen of your TV. Something new, fresh, exciting, something sweet, emotional, and that carries a serious impact to this day. Something that you somehow avoid the next 8 years with no information. Until today. My name is Bryerbox, and this is my experience watching Yuri on Ice for the very first time in 2024. Note, I will be talking about spoilers here. If you're somehow like me and have no idea what Yuri on Ice is or what it's about, I'll be talking about major plot points. This is your only warning. Let me give you some context. I never watched anime growing up. I wasn't a hater or anything, it just was something I never interacted with or had much exposure to at all. When I got into college, I think the first anime I ever watched was Ouran High School Host Club. Was that a sign for something bigger? Yeah, probably, but that's neither here nor there. But overall, the culture never appealed to me until later, sometime mid 2023, when I started getting into anime and eventually started watching things that I missed out on. Yuri on Ice, though, that's a different story. Yuri on Ice was something I always kind of heard about in background noise. Is that anime, the skating one, right? That's what I always said. I hadn't hit my anime phase until last year, so it was always something I meant to get around to watching. I never made the effort to. And yes, somehow, I was even on Tumblr in 2016 when the show came out, and I avoided spoilers for years. How? Who knows? Maybe the anime gods wanted me to experience it firsthand when it was time. And I guess 8 years later, it finally was time. And it started with an ending. I saw news of the cancellation of Ice Adolescence on Twitter, and immediately that was a trigger. Up to this point, I knew all of 3 things about the show. 1, it's about figure skating. 2, it was somehow gay. And 3, some guy named Chris was really enthusiastic about figure skating. Nothing else. But I could feel the collective sadness of so many friends who loved the show, even to the point of staying up into the late hours of the night talking to them and making sure they were okay. Because then I knew I had to see it for myself. If it was so important to so many of my friends, I had to know what the hype was all about. This was a special show. I knew that much. And I was excited to see what I was missing out all this time. What I did next was an absolute indulgence. I found the limited edition of the Blu-ray and DVD release and bought it. For something I had never seen anything about before, that probably sounds like really financially stupid. You're probably right. Honestly, the thing wasn't cheap at all, and it also came with none of the art cards promised to me, which was highly disappointing. But I did this for a couple of reasons. As a TGCF fan, I did the same thing with the limited edition of the Season 1 release. Having a physical copy of the thing is really reassuring to me if it ever gets cut from streaming services. And it's also fun to have a physical copy of something you care about. But more importantly, I knew that splurging on this was going to be a start of a new love for me. So why not go all out? And here it was, on my doorstep. I wasted no time popping in the disc, and that intro song and sequence. I'd seen clips of it before, but never in its entirety. The song History Maker is beautifully written, and I think it encapsulates a lot about what the show is about. And my god, the animation, it took my breath away. I'll talk more about this in a minute. Needless to say, I was hooked, and I hadn't seen anything yet. 12 episodes later, yeah, I can safely say I know what everybody was talking about. The show is truly something special, and I've never been happier to experience something for the first time like this. Part 1. Let's talk style. The visual design of Yuri on Ice is very specific and special. I don't know much about other sports animes, but Yuri on Ice animators studied and took away details from real-life figure skaters that translates beautifully to the screen. It feels real to watch, if that makes any sense. From the opening to any of the times Yuri or his fellow skaters hit the ice, it's obvious to see how much care it went into making the skating look accurate and pleasing to the eye. And it worked, folks. Speaking of pleasing, let's talk audio, aka the music. Dean Fujioka did the opening theme, History Maker, and it's a wonderful intro song, to put it mildly. The lyrics tell you all Yuri's story. They also talk about Victor, Yurio. I'd even go as far as to say it talks about all the skaters, their goals, their dreams on the ice. The composition feels exciting, fast-paced, yet magnificent, much like how figure skating is. Yuri has 2 feature songs that he skates to, Eros and Yuri on Ice. The structure of these songs fit Yuri so well. Eros grows with him as he gains confidence as a skater, and the rise and fall of Yuri on Ice is emotional and heartbreaking, as well as comforting. Maybe like a bowl of katsudon. I think my favorite song, though, might have to go to Welcome to the Madness, the OVA that wasn't officially broadcasted, but put onto the DVD release. This OVA features Yuri Plisetsky, Yuri's rival, and I don't even think I can put into words what this OVA is. You might just have to check it out for yourself, but I will say this. This 2-minute video is charged with more sass and fruity energy than I was expecting, that's for sure. Part 2. Characters to love. I think what got me so hooked immediately was Yuri himself. I've never related that fast to a character's anxiety, emotions, and growth as I have with him. I have an anxiety disorder, and when he talks about his insecurities, self-doubting nature, his failures, and later his success, it's parallel to things I've experienced, and that makes him much more of a real character to me. I was rooting for him the entire time. I loved watching his Eros routine and how he grew into the role he created for himself. As a performer, I've done similar things, making stories for how I want to fit the role more. And the way he skates for love, for Victor, his family and friends, and for himself, it's heartwarming and made me cry several times. He's also, really funny. Let's revisit some of his best moments, shall we?
He's awake. There's so much Eros in this routine, I think it might impregnate me. You are the femme fatale of the pork cutlet bowl. Did I actually say that? I'm gonna go crawl under a rock and die!
Or just any of the moments he's screaming at the top of his lungs. And then there's Victor. There are so many layers to him that I love. The Victor who's proud, loving the attention of the crowd and the fame of being an acclaimed skater. Victor who's soft, who loves Katsudan, his dog, and sightseeing with Yuri. Coach Victor, who while being new to the game, brings what he knows to others and tries his best, even when people don't believe in his abilities. He can ooze confidence, wow a crowd, but also be vulnerable and want things. He's a character that on surface level, maybe there's not much beyond what you see, but that's what makes him so surprising. And hey, if you know, that's very on brand for him. There's heaps of other skaters to love here too. From Yuri's rival from Russia, who also happens to be named Yuri, or Yurio, but don't let him catch you saying that. To Victor's buddy Krzysztof Giacometti, who skates for Sweden, and even the mysterious Otabek Alton from Kazakhstan, among many others. It reminds me as a viewer of the show that there's stakes to all this, many people wanting to win for different reasons, and it makes every moment matter that much more. Yes, Yuri's the main character, and that puts him on a different scope to the viewer. That doesn't negate the other stories being told. Speaking of which, Part 3. The stakes, aka the story. Where do I even start with this? There are so many elements to the story that I love dearly. Maybe the most obvious should be mentioned first. The Grand Prix final, where everything begins. Where Yuri is at his lowest, after suffering a loss of self-confidence and defeat in competition, who goes home to Japan and intends to give up skating forever. Until his idol, Viktor Nikiforov, literally shows up at his door and becomes his coach. Yuri's rivalry with the 15-year-old Yuri Plasetsky also begins here, as the two compete for Victor's attention and to secure a program that will get them gold at the next Grand Prix final. There's so many people competing for gold, and Yuri grows so much in the 12 episodes that we have with him. We see friends like Peachit, who's skating to bring the love of figure skating to Thailand, Christoph, who hopes of investing even Victor in rivalry, even Yurio, who desperately wants to prove himself and secure fame for his young age. We see each of them succeed or fail, succumb to nerves or triumph in their mental battles. The scene where Yuri cries with Victor felt real and raw. It really stuck with me as someone that has anxiety, has similar fears that he does, performance anxiety and all, which makes him that much more relatable. The growth and self-confidence that he has is beautiful to watch, which brings me to the final episode. Initially, it did feel a little weird to not have Yuri get gold in place first. I mean, he's the protagonist. It almost felt like, what's the point if he didn't win? But I realized after watching a couple times, winning really wasn't the point in the end. Because of Victor coming back to the competition scene, Yurio proving himself by taking gold, even Yuri himself getting on the podium at all with the conviction to say that he wants to keep competing. They were all growing moments. It was worth it in the end to see where everyone ended up. Even characters like JJ got a chance to mature and shine. It was, in a word, satisfying. Then there's the elephant in the room, the change in the relationship between Yuri and Victor. When the series begins, it's clear that Yuri idolizes Victor, and has admired him as a skater for years. However, there's a shift in their dynamic as they get closer, bond more, and Yuri begins to regain some of the confidence that he lost. And of course, that moment that changed everything. The kiss in episode 7. This was the moment that caught the attention of everyone. No longer was this just a sports anime that had queerbaiting interlisted in the writing. No, this was different. In the moment when they exchange rings in Barcelona, Victor saying they'll get married when Yuri wins gold, Yuri kissing the ring before he skates to the Grand Prix final, this clear chemistry between the two. Even the final ending credits sequence where the pair skate together. All of that was monumental for me as a watcher today, and I wonder if I had seen it 8 years ago, how would it have impacted me then? Maybe that's a hypothetical for another day. All of that to say, this was a special thing to watch for the first time, as a queer person and as someone who related heavily to both Victor and Yuri. And besides, I guess Yuri not winning gold would have ended that story, and they needed something for season 2 Oh yeah. I guess that brings us to part 4. Now what? A very open-ended question, perhaps. After Mappa canceled the movie officially, there doesn't seem to be much hope for anything new from them. Not all hope is lost, though. There is, of course, plenty of merch to be found on reseller sites, and plentiful fanfiction on the internet, for whatever you may fancy. I will say, being on Twitter and social media when the news came out, it was very wholesome to see the fandom come together and say, "We won't forget the treasure you made." It gave me hope as someone who sees a lot of divisive opinions on the internet. Again, a topic for another video. So where does that leave me? I loved my first experience watching Yuri on Ice. Maybe more than the words I've spoken here can do justice. I'll be creating more for the fandom, whether it be stickers or fanfiction or in general. I rewatch the show every now and again and cry like I did the first time. This is a rare and wonderful piece of media that has its place in my heart and on my shelf. I won't forget what Mappa, for whatever reason, chose not to continue with. To Yuri on Ice, thank you. To the voice actors who put in all the love and passion to every line. The animators whose talents shine, even if so much work on an awaited medium will never see the light of day. The composers who put in so much care into every note of every song. And everyone else who worked on it. Thank you. And to you, who sat through this video. Thank you. This is a vision of time and love, and I appreciate everyone who sat down to watch. This has been Bryerbox. See you next level.